Thank you very much for that introduction, Mike. Appreciate it. I'm really excited about this topic on sleep. It's a real important topic and one that I believe that a lot of people, even recently, have been dealing with issues. But before we begin, I'd like to go over some disclosures and disclaimers. So Mike, if you go to the next slide, please. So first and foremost, this presentation is for informational purposes only. Anything presented in this lecture is not meant to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, and should not be a substitute for individualized professional medical advice. Go ahead and next slide, please. Back a few more. All right, conflicts of interest. So I do work on behalf of Vital Choice Health Store. So that is one, and I'm giving a presentation on behalf of Vital Choice Health Store. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then at the time of this lecture, I am not endorsed by any brands or products. So anything I mention in here is strictly for your education and enlightenment. I am not getting any money or compensation for that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so as I was going and researching through this topic, I came across this new treatment that I want to share with you. So scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer, enhances your memory and makes you more creative, makes you look more attractive, keeps you slim and lowers food cravings. It protects you from cancer and dementia, wards off colds and flu. It lowers the risk of heart attacks and stroke, not to mention even diabetes. You'll even feel happier, less depressed, and less anxious. And so when I saw this, I was like, whoa, this is an amazing treatment. I need to investigate this. I'm interested, and I know a lot of you are probably interested as well. So what is this new treatment? And when I looked into it, you can go to the next slide, please. It is sleep. It's that mysterious period of time, typically during the night, where you are unconscious to the outside world, where eons of time and no time at all pass all at once. Where that deep restorative process takes place, that renews the mind, body, and spirit and prepares you for the next day. All these things are happening and much more during that sleep period. So it's probably the most important thing that we can do for our health is to optimize our sleep and really get in tune with it and make it a part of our daily and nightly routine. And so all of you here are here to find out how you can do that. Either you yourself or you know someone who has trouble with sleep or wants to optimize their sleep. And so that's what we're going to learn about today. Next slide, please. So let's start with a few questions before we get in deep into it. Why do we sleep? Have any of you ever thought of that? Do we go through this mysterious process every night and we wake up every morning? Is it to recover from the day before? Is it to prepare for the next one? Is it for physical rest? Is it for mental rest or spiritual rest? Is it everything? And I think you'll discover that you will definitely be going through much more than just those processes. Now, the strategies that I present tonight, there's a full spectrum of individuals who have different needs. And so what I'm trying to do with this presentation is give you the most common causes for disrupted sleep, as well as kind of some trial and errors of how to figure out how to optimize it. So we don't have all the answers yet. Even researchers are still discovering things, but I think we can all know, just even by simple observation, even your own experience of what it means when you get a good night's sleep versus when you don't, why you need the sleep, how you feel when you don't get a good night's sleep. It is for rejuvenating the body, mentally, physically, and spiritually. But as we'll discover, the mind and body are far from inactive. There's many processes going on that regenerate us throughout the night. Next slide, please. So let's just talk about briefly some quick stats. So if you want to impress your friends, the medical term for sleepiness or drowsiness is known as somnolence. So throw that out at the next Scrabble word game that you're playing and impress your friends. 1/3 of your life will be spent sleeping. That's pretty big. Based on what the average lifespan is, roughly just under 73 years globally. That's about 24 years of your life sleeping if you're getting your 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. That's a huge portion of your life, and importance really needs to be placed on that because of what we'll discuss later. 15 to 20% of the US population has some type of sleep disorder. So that's 1 in 5 people, and I'm sure everyone at least knows that many. And then this is what I found interesting for the stats is 1 person dies in an auto accident every hour in the United States due to a fatigue-related error. And that accounts more than alcohol and drug accidents combined, and that's huge. Yet you hardly ever hear of any public health campaigns or new public service announcements regarding the dangers of drowsy driving or sleepy driving with that. Next slide, please. So let's get into discussing briefly what sleep is, what happens for sleep. There are 2 general things that happen for sleep. One of them is that there's a buildup of a chemical in your body known as adenosine, and it builds up throughout the day from the time you wake up until you start getting tired and sleepy in the evening. That buildup is what they call sleep pressure. It's what kind of drives you to seek the habit of sleeping. The other one is a interplay with daylight and the production of what is known as melatonin. So as it starts becoming the daylight wanes or as darkness starts coming, your body produces what's known as melatonin, which causes drowsiness and sets the stage for sleep. And during sleep, your body goes through several stages of sleep, each kind of roughly chunked into 90-minute cycles. And those cycles repeat dynamically throughout the night. There's a part of sleep known as NREM, or non-rapid eye movement sleep. And there's another portion known as REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. And that was just harkens back to when they were discovering different sleep stages. They realized that at certain times of the night, your eyes are actually moving rapidly during that sleep stage versus other sleep stages. And so you need about between 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every night. And that roughly equates to 5 to 6 cycles, or 5 to 6 90-minute cycles throughout the night. Ideally, most people's drive to sleep, it happens between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. And probably the strongest drive happens between 10 and 11 p.m. So really optimizing that time is going to be the best. The sleep phases, don't be too alarmed by this chart or graph. On the left-hand side, it's just talking about the different stages of sleep, which is essentially just measuring the brain activity. And on the bottom row, the horizontal row, it talks about time in hours. So roughly 7 to 8 hours on the bottom there. As you go through each of these levels, you go into deeper and deeper sleep. Stages 3 and 4, what are known as your deep sleep. Stages 1 and 2 are more the lighter sleep. The red bar across the top, you will notice, is what's known as the REM sleep. So that's the sleep that you will have more of the dreams in. You have more of that psychologically restoring sleep. And so it just fluctuates throughout the night. You go all the way down from 1 to stage 4, you go up to REM sleep, that red bar, you come down again. And as the night goes on, you have less and less stage 3 and 4 sleep and more of the REM and the stage 1 and 2 sleep. So that's kind of the cycle it goes through. And all those cycles are important. And depending on when you go to sleep, you may miss that first portion of it and only get maybe the lighter sleep and not the deep restorative sleep. So it's real important to understand when you're going to bed and how that functions in your body. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the benefits of sleep. There are so many benefits, and I couldn't list them all on this one slide, but we got the enhancing learning and memory. During sleep, your memories are consolidated. They're moved from short-term storage into long-term storage. Your learning of things happens while you sleep. Sometimes you even have understanding of certain problems or solutions during your sleep because your mind's continually working on it. You have increased immune function. You have detoxification of the brain, where you have what's known as cerebral spinal fluid, that special fluid that gets pumped into the brain and gets rid of all the waste products. It regulates blood pressure and heart rate. Those tend to go down during sleep. Repairing of tissues and organs, reducing the cancer risk. Melatonin has real strong anti-cancer properties to it. So when your body's producing it and your immune system's functioning optimally, you have that reduced risk. reducing cardiovascular disease. You have healthy aging because of all these processes functioning well. Reducing anxiety and depression, supports healthy digestion, supports weight loss because of certain hormones that are increased during that time, which helps you break down fat. Reducing stress and helping restore your adrenal glands. Increasing energy production, and the list goes on and on and on. So I don't want to go over too much of it here, but these are huge functions of sleep. And what you'll notice is that even if you have these issues, sleep is going to be beneficial for it as well. So taking that, we'll go to the next one. You'll understand that sleep is absolutely vital to your health. The sleep researcher William Dement said, "You're not healthy unless your sleep is healthy." And that's putting a lot of weight on our sleep. And I think we need to pay much more attention to it than we do. So you can eat well, you can exercise, but if you're not getting enough sleep, then undoubtedly you're going to suffer with your health. So let's talk about the most common sleep issue, insomnia. Again, I'm not going to touch on all the different issues there are with sleep, but insomnia is one of the main ones out there. It's defined as a difficulty in falling asleep or staying asleep, or the absence of rest, a poor quality sleep. It in and of itself is a symptom. It is not a disease by itself. You are typically have insomnia because of other conditions, not that you just have insomnia by itself. So there are kind of two types of insomnia. The technical terms are sleep onset insomnia, which is trouble falling asleep, and sleep maintenance insomnia, which is trouble staying asleep or waking up during the night. Or you can have both. A lot of people might have a combination of both of those. Next slide, please. So what are the causes? I'm going to spend a good amount of time on this slide because there are so many causes of insomnia and sleep issues. The first and foremost important one is going to be what's known as circadian rhythm disorders. So that's when your body is out of balance with the light and dark cycle, if you've traveled time zones. If for some reason you're staying up late and getting up early, or vice versa, you have real disruption in that rhythm, and your body loves rhythm and loves routine. Other ones that can be affected, which is a huge one, nutrition and diet. So it could be as simple as certain nutritional deficiencies. Those can influence how your body creates melatonin, how your body responds and sets the stage for sleep. Weight loss diets, ketogenic diets, vegetarian and vegan diets. Some of these things might lack certain elements to them that are needed for good quality sleep. And then medications. This one's a huge one. Lots of medications are implicated in insomnia, whether that's acid blockers, pain relievers, antacids, anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, antihistamines, antipsychotics, blood thinners, blood pressure medications, even sleep medications can all disrupt your sleep. And so it's a really big issue. And so that is something to investigate if one of those medications might not be causing an issue here. Psychological conditions, so anxiety and depression, can also come along with insomnia. Chronic diseases, so it might not be related directly to sleep. You might have thyroid issues or adrenal issues or other serious chronic conditions that contribute to your insomnia. So when I talk about kind of looking at the root cause or looking at the reason for insomnia, you can't just be taking a natural sleeping aid and expect yourself to sleep if the underlying reason is something else, let's say hormone imbalances, or if your thyroid or adrenals are not functioning appropriately. That is what needs to be addressed in order to successfully support and treat your insomnia. And then there are certain bad habits that we get into, using electronics before bed, or certain things like caffeine consumption, or napping too close to bedtime. And even the bedroom environment can play a huge role into that. So we're going to look at all those options and go through some things that you can do to mitigate some of those or decrease those effects that they have on you. So we'll talk about the circadian rhythm. That is going to be absolutely key. Essentially going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time, exposure to light and darkness, those are tied closely together. Certain disrupting substances like alcohol and caffeine, temperature regulation, the sacred bed, and making sure that your bedroom is used for just those things that you want. Electronics and electromagnetic fields and exercises are all going to tie into how you set the foundation for quality sleep. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the circadian rhythm. Essentially, it's a fancy term for that 24-hour biological clock. It is that light and dark cycle that we all go through. And the key is really making sure that you are in rhythm and balance with that. So when you wake up in the morning, making sure you're exposing yourself to bright light during the daytime when you wake up. And then as nighttime falls, when it's dark, making sure you're not using things that are going to keep you up because of the artificial lighting that you have. You can't catch up on your sleep. So if you go 5 days and you're staying up late all the time, getting up early and it's all messed up, over the weekend, you can't really catch up on what they call sleep debt, or that amount that you've been not getting the entire week. It takes at least 3 days, if not more, to catch up on it. So you can't reset yourself back to it just by getting 15 hours of sleep on Saturday and Sunday. Next slide, please. So let's start with one of the main culprits, or big culprit, is alcohol. So avoiding alcohol. While most people use alcohol to fall asleep, and it causes them to become drowsy, to help them fall asleep, it actually disrupts the second part of sleep, disrupts the quality of your sleep, and it's detrimental to it. So it's not a good way to help yourself fall asleep or stay asleep. It actually disrupts it, and for a number of reasons. Even if you're just drinking moderately, your 1 to 2 glasses of wine in the evening, let's say, it disrupts that 24-hour cycle. It suppresses melatonin production and also growth hormone, which is needed for reparative sleep. It increases your loss of magnesium from the body, as well as other B vitamins, and those are needed for melatonin production and lots of other cellular processes in the body. It disrupts what's known as Rem sleep, that sleep that it is restorative, and also that sleep period where you have the most dreams. It kind of disrupts that period because your body is trying to process alcohol, and in doing so, it knocks you out of that REM sleep. It causes that further what they call rebound effects. So as you're kind of moving into the deeper stages, the alcohol causes you to go right into the lighter sleep, sleep that's not as restorative, not as deep, and not as refreshing, and you will wake up more often during the night. So if you're really struggling with insomnia, one of the issues would be to look at your alcohol consumption. If at minimum, 3 hours before bedtime, don't drink any alcohol, or don't drink it at all that day if you're really sensitive to it. So those are going to be the real big things to keep an eye out for. Caffeine is another one. Many people use this as a crutch to keep themselves awake during the day because they didn't have a good night's sleep. Well, same goes true for getting a good night's sleep, is making sure that you're stopping it in time, because your body is actually tricking your body to stay awake. And according to Matthew Walker, who's a sleep researcher, caffeine is the most widely used and abused psychoactive stimulant in the world, and is second traded only after oil. So it is one of the most popular substances there is. Caffeine blunts the drive to sleep, and it creates that chemical called adenosine. And when adenosine builds up in the brain, you typically get sleepy. Well, if that's being blocked by caffeine, that adenosine is still building up in the brain, but now the brain thinks that you're alive and awake and you are alert, which is great sometimes. But then as soon as that caffeine gets processed and goes away, you have that crash, that caffeine crash, because all that adenosine that's been building up now floods your receptors in your brain, and you get extremely sleepy. You can find this not just in coffee and tea, but even chocolate, energy drinks, weight loss pills, and even some medications can have this in it. So stop caffeine by 2 p.m. or again, don't drink it at all if you're really sensitive. So these are things to consider. Next slide, please. Smoking is another one. Now there are a lot of things that are involved in smoking beyond just disrupting sleep, but nicotine is a stimulant. So depending on how you process it and how sensitive you are, both smoking cigarettes as well as trying to quit smoking can cause sleep disturbances. So this is something to be aware of if you smoke cigarettes or are trying to quit. You can have a withdrawal during the night, which can wake you up, especially if you're quitting, or if you, depending on when you had your last cigarette, as the body starts processing that nicotine, you may get at your lowest levels during sleep and wake up. There's also more prevalence of sleep disorders like sleep apnea and snoring, which disrupt sleep as well. Next slide, please. So this light and darkness, that goes back to that circadian rhythm and that cycle that we talked in the beginning. Exposing yourself to bright light, that suppresses melatonin. So best thing to do in the morning is once you wake up, expose yourself to bright light, go outside. That will stop the melatonin from being produced and wake you up much more readily. And then keeping the exposure throughout the day until it starts getting darker in the evening time. And during that time, be very aware of the artificial light, particularly blue lights. So blue lights from electronics or fluorescent bulbs, LED lights, they produce more blue light, and those have a stronger suppression on melatonin than even just regular incandescent bulbs or candle light or those types of things. So anything from TVs, computers, cell phones, tablets, all these things have that background blue light and can disrupt your sleep. So not doing them late into the night, stopping them 2 or 3 hours before you're going to go to bed, or if you really can't, consider dimming the lights on the back of your screen. Sometimes there's apps that create more of a natural lighting for that, or wear what they call blue light blocking glasses that block that blue light from getting into your eyes and stopping your melatonin production. Use blackout curtains to make your room as completely black as you can, or face mask. Lots of things that you can do, especially if you can't control your environment. This is really important for those, especially very sensitive to sleep. So this electronics slide ties right back into that light and dark, again, because of that blue light production, which suppresses melatonin, even stronger compared to, let's say, a green light or any other light. So there are a number of apps and things on your phone that you can dim those lights if you're needing to work with them. But again, the idea would be to eliminate their use, change to red night lights if you need a night light, or kind of that orange glow that would come from like candles or salt lamps. Those are going to be great ones to have in the evening time to not disrupt that melatonin production. And then you have to think about your temperature of the room. Generally during sleep, your body temperature decreases by 1 to 2 degrees, and it starts happening just before going to bed. And so if your room or your house is too hot or too cold, you can disrupt and throw off that cycle. Generally, it's agreed upon by the sleep researchers that somewhere between 60 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit is the best temperature to keep your room or your house. During that time, it helps with assisting your body to go to sleep. Even if you are sensitive to cold or like to keep that temperature at a higher amount during the day, it's still best to keep it at that 60 to 68 degrees. But again, don't make sure you're freezing and shivering in bed, or that you're too overly bundled and it's too hot, because that can also disrupt sleep. So there's a lot of things to think about, but if you listen to your body and assess it, you'll be able to figure that out. Sometimes taking a warm bath prior to bedtime is great. You're able to put things like essential oils in there to help you relax, but that heat from the warm bath brings your temperature up a little bit. And then as soon as you step out of that bath, you start that cooling process. Your body starts to cool down right away, and you can assist that body temperature drop 1 to 2 degrees and really help you get that deep sleep. Next slide, please. And then the bed and the bedroom, really keeping it sacred, so to speak. So only using your bed for 2 things, sleep and sex, nothing else. And I say this real important. So reading in bed, watching TV in bed, doing work in bed, that's throwing off your body. Your body really likes to habit. Your body and brain like habit. And anytime you are in your bed, you are setting the stage for what needs to happen. And if you are working on your computer every time you're in bed, or eating snacks when you're in bed, your body thinks that that's what's going to happen, and it's not going to prepare yourself for sleep. So you might be in bed and your eyes are wide awake because it's knowing that you're going to be watching TV or you're going to be eating snacks and it's not ready to go to bed. So it's really making sure that you keep your bed for things that you do in your bed and nothing else. Don't watch TV, don't eat, don't work, all those other things. Exercise. Exercise, again, some of these slides and topics, there can be whole presentations on, but here are some of the main points, really helping, again, to set that sleep and wake cycle, particularly if you exercise in the morning or afternoon. Now, there are some people that might be able to exercise late at night and then have no problem going to bed, but for the most part, doing it in the morning or afternoon really sets you up for a good night's sleep. And part of it has to do with you get yourself really tired and your body needs to repair, and so that deeper sort of sleep at night is great. Other times it has to do with the stress reduction and helping with that insomnia over time. So don't expect things to happen immediately. That regular pattern of exercise is what's going to help set that sleep and wake cycle and set you up for good rest, deep sleep. Next slide, please. So, sleep support products. There are so many out there, and I did my best to try to narrow them down to the common ingredients or some of the top products that we have at Vital Choice Health Store. So one of the top ones, and before we get into that, I'm going to go to the next slide, please. We're going to talk about some issues. So again, I'm going to remind you that there are certain medical conditions, certain medications that you should check with your doctor or pharmacist before taking natural products, because there could be negative interactions with them. Just because it's natural does not mean that it is always safe, completely safe, and doesn't cause harm to the body. There are certain botanicals out there that can cause issues, or the interaction with the medication is predominantly what happens when you're causing side effects. So check with your doctors, but a lot of these things are great to support the calming and relaxing of the body. Okay, next slide, please. Let's talk about magnesium. I know there's a lot on this slide, but it's real important and probably the number one mineral or substance I would have if I was on a deserted island by myself. This would be the number one thing that I would take with me. Approximately 50 to 80% of the population, it's been estimated, are not getting adequate amounts of magnesium. And considering that it's over 300 reactions in the body need magnesium, which is included with anything from energy production to manufacturing of sleep, hormones, relaxing the nervous system and muscle function, heart health, brain health, immune function, balancing blood sugar, and the list goes so much more. Magnesium is the most probably important mineral that we are not getting enough of and really benefits every cell in our body. And so increases or decreases in magnesium can lead to cell dysfunction. And stress burns through more magnesium, so you're going to need more of it during that time. So if you're stressed out and not sleeping well, that's kind of a double combination for it. Best ones to consider are magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate or something called magnesium chloride. Magnesium has to be bound to something, which is that second part of the name. And they come in all sorts of forms: capsules, tablets, powders, some forms you can find in liquid form. The best one is going to be the one that you're going to take, the one that's going to be used as opposed to just sitting on your shelf. Most people find capsules are pretty convenient, but it's not just taking them in the evening time to help you fall asleep. Especially with magnesium, it might take weeks, months, maybe even a year to rebuild your magnesium levels. So taking it consistently, not just in the evening time, but splitting them up throughout the day. It's getting your magnesium levels up. That's the important thing, not just that you're taking it right before bed, because those levels have to be boosted up. So taking it throughout the day consistently, and roughly around 300 to 400 milligrams a day is what's recommended for adults. At the very least, you might need a little bit more than that. Next slide, please. The next one here is a liquid combination that I really like. It's a fabulous blend. It's made up of nervines or botanicals that help relax the nervous system and help produce sedative effects or sleep-inducing effects. So hops and passion flower and skullcap are great for that. Passion flower also helps with those anxious type symptoms or those people who have a hard time shutting their brain off during the evening time. So this is going to be great for those people who are very maybe a little bit anxious and nervous in the evening time and have trouble calming down. And so they need something to kind of relax the nervous system, relax the mind, and help them with falling asleep. This would be a great product to use. And you can do that both directly in the mouth, or a lot of times you can put it in a little bit of water as well, and do that multiple times if need be. Next slide, please. The other product that we have that's really great, I like it. This comes in a capsule form. It's called Calm ASAP by Gaia Herbs. And some of these herbs are similar to that Sleepy Nights that we saw before, but it has a few extra ingredients that really make this a powerful combination. You have the chamomile, vervain, and English lavender in there, which are really great. Again, calming, relaxing the brain and nervous system, and helping with those anxious type symptoms. Holy basil is great for that stress support, and then you have skullcap and oats in there as well. So generally, it's designed for helping with those anxious symptoms, but because it can be very calming and relaxing, you can also use it prior to bedtime and really get those sedative effects. Dosage is 3 capsules a day for that sleep support. And if you're looking for more of that continuous support for stress throughout the day, you might want to just start with 1 and kind of see how you do 1 several times throughout the day. Next slide, please. The next one is L-Tryptophan and 5-HTP, which are precursors or kind of the building blocks to the neurotransmitters serotonin and melatonin, which both play an important role in sleep. So you're kind of giving your body those building blocks. They're amino acids or proteins, and your body then takes those and creates them for helping with neurotransmitter production for serotonin, which is that kind of boost that mood, that happy feeling, and then melatonin, which helps with sleep issues. So great for those who have maybe those lower moods and also sleep issues combined with that. The important things to note here are that 5-HTP can cause some stomach upsets in some people, so that might, not be a good thing for everyone. And it's contraindicated with certain medications, particularly medications that are more like antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications. So really check with your doctor before just doing a 5-HTP by yourself. Next slide, please. Don't be too confused by this slide. I just want to give you a visual representation of tryptophan, 5-HTP, serotonin, melatonin, kind of the pathways of how they're converted. So you go from tryptophan at the top of the page, gets converted to 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is 5-HTP, then gets converted to serotonin, and then further into melatonin. And so all those processes need additional vitamins and minerals to actually make that conversion. And this is where you're interacting. The tryptophan and 5-HTP are interacting there. L-theanine and GABA. These are other amino acids, naturally derived, that can be used that really helps to relax the brain and produce what's known as alpha brain waves, and reducing the more excitatory brain waves known as beta. And so you can produce a nice, calm, relaxed feeling, generally without causing sedation or causing sleepiness. Though higher doses of these individual nutrients, especially GABA, because it's a bit stronger, can cause sleepiness. There are patented forms known as pharma-GABA and sun-theanine, and those are just depending on how they're created. Those are probably the best forms to consider and go with. Next slide, please. And then there are some combination ones. So these are combination formulas. GABA Soothe is a great formula by Jarrow Formulas. It supports relaxation and focus and has an additional ingredient that helps with stress support known as ashwagandha. It's a special type of clinically studied extract. And then we have that theanine and GABA in there that helps, again, producing those calming and relaxing brain waves. So it's not, again, not specifically designed just for sleep. It's designed more for the stress response to help support it. So you can take it throughout the day, or at least some people can. Then most people might want to start in the evening time so you know how it affects you. So great for those that have stress that's interfering with their sleep. This would be a great combination formula. Next option, please. Next slide. This is a really great formula. I recently came across it, and I like it because it hits all the things that we're talking about. It provides both that anxiety and stress support, but has a lot of the ingredients that really support sleep as well. So you have a solid amount of magnesium in there at 300 milligrams. Again, that magnesium, all those processes that it helps in the body, we learned about before. So really good dosage of there. You also have theanine and GABA, again, supporting calm and relaxed focus and attention. But then additionally, you have holy basil and a patented combination botanical product called Relora. And these have been both supported to reduce cortisol exposure or cortisol levels. When you're stressed out, you produce a lot of cortisol hormone. And that keeps you awake at night, especially if you're having lots of it more in the evening time. So this helps to kind of reset that balance and reduce those levels, as well as kind of support the movement of potassium in and out of neurons, which prevents excitation. So taurine is in there, which is an amino acid that really helps calm and support cellular excitation in there. Next slide, please. And then we get to the tried and true, the melatonin externally. So generally, melatonin, you create about 500 to 300 micrograms at night. but I don't recommend this for long-term use. Generally, it's best for those that really their rhythm of sleeping and waking is out of sync. So jet lag, shift work, traveling, sickness, things that throw that sleep and wake cycle off. This is great to help kind of recalibrate that. So best for short periods of time. I say no more than 2 weeks. Some might argue you can go longer. That's just my brief input on that. 2 weeks is probably the best to keep it like that or shorter. Or you can probably stretch it to about a month. What you'll find if you go much longer than that or keep increasing the dosage is that you'll have to keep increasing the dosage and it'll eventually stop working for you. So low dose is less than 1 milligram, moderate dose 2 to 5, and really high dosage are 5 and over. So some good forms are maybe more the extended release of a smaller dosage. So start off small and slowly work your way up. Find that sweet spot. Do it for a period of time. Don't just try it for a few days. Maybe do less than 1 milligram or 1 milligram for several nights for about a month or so and before switching to a different one. You can find sublingual lozenges that just dissolve under the tongue, getting the system a bit quicker. Pills and even liquid drops that you can adjust at small increments. So best to be used for more of those shorter term use and kind of resetting that sleep and wake cycle. Again, here's that same type of slide, just showing you how melatonin is created and where it's interacting on the scale. Next slide, please. All right, melatonin products we'll be talking about. Next slide. So melatonin sustain is what's known as a sustained release melatonin. So it's a small amount, 1 milligram. It's also combined with vitamin B6, which is needed for melatonin production. And the 1 milligram is slowly released throughout the night. So it's sustained release is what they call it. So you're getting small amounts slowly throughout the night to help you go to sleep, as well as stay asleep. So it's really great for, again, resetting those sleep and wake cycles, particularly if those people are waking up during the middle of the night as well. Next formula, please. Tranquil sleep. Tranquil sleep, again, this is a great combination. Again, it's got melatonin in there. So again, more designed for that short-term use or that resetting the sleep-wake cycle. But you have the L-Theanine in there, which helps calm and relax the brain and set you up for sleep. And then that 5-HTP is going to be continually converted throughout the night to melatonin to provide that sustained release and that sustained melatonin production to keep you asleep. Comes in chewable tablets, and it's very, very, very delicious. A lot of people like it. Dreminol or Dreminol, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This is a great formula, probably one of our #1 sleep formulas. It's designed in such a way to have a faster acting release of certain parts of more than melatonin, and then a slower acting release of that 5-HTP in there that again keep you slowly producing melatonin throughout the night, supporting that sleep. You have the botanicals lemon balm in there, which is again really great botanical to calm and relax the nervous system and brain. And then you have a really special type of casein peptide or milk protein called lactium, which produces that state of bliss. So really helpful for stressful situations. And so it's a really great combination in a capsule formula. Next slide, please. So in summary, the next few slides are summary. We have making sure you're taking a look at all the things that we talked about. Stop your caffeine by 2 p.m. or don't drink it at all. Stop at least 3 hours prior to bedtime for alcohol because of that disruption, or don't drink it at all. Really making sure that you're reducing your exposure to light at night, especially blue lights and lights from electronics. So figuring out a way how to reduce that amount. Sleep in a pitch black room or use red lights, when needed, red night lights. Making sure you're keeping that temperature where it possibly should be. You don't have to play around with that. 60 to 80, 68 degrees is probably the best range to be in. And make sure your bedding is comfortable. Don't over or under bundle, or don't make yourself too hot or too cold. Next slide, please. And then making sure you're keeping your bed for what you're supposed to do in your bed. So nothing but sleep or sex. Don't work in your bed. Again, you're trying to create that habit for when you get into bed, your brain is already thinking, great, I need to go to sleep. I'm not supposed to be working. I'm not supposed to be watching TV. You're really needing to create that habit. And when you are exercising, which everyone should be exercising, getting out in the early morning or afternoon, again, to really get that deep quality sleep at night for helping with that circadian rhythm, as well as helping with that, kind of giving a bit of exhaustion to help get to bed at night. And then
supplement when needed. Those supplements we talked about, those are just a few and some of the more common ones that people use. But use them to support your body's processes, not to try to force your body to do something. And then if those things aren't working, there might be other things going on that you have to take a look at. So it might not be, you're not sleeping because you're not sleeping because of blue lights or something. It might have to be with maybe your adrenals need support and function. Maybe there's a medication that you're on that needs to be addressed with your doctor. So those are things to take a look at. But address the cause is what the real important thing, not just putting a Band-Aid over it. These are some resources that you can look into if you really want to dive deep into getting more tips like this in more detail. There's a Sleep Smarter book, which I really like, by Sean Stevenson. A number of books by Michael Bruce, who also has a book highlighted The Power of When, which people have different ways of sleeping and different times of the day when they're active, for whether there's best time to think, best time to read, best time to eat lunch. He really goes over kind of those different types of people and when is the best time to actually nap and fall asleep and things. And then there's some resources in there, the Sleep Doctor, Sleep Foundation, and Sleep.org, that gives you more information of different sleep disorders and things to think about for sleeping. So I'll leave you with the next slide, which is a quote by Matthew Walker, a sleep researcher, which I think sums up everything. The importance of sleep is the single most effective thing we can do to reset our brain and body health each day. Mother Nature's best effort yet at contra death. So this is what I'll leave you with. The next slide will have room for questions. So if there's any questions, Mike, you might have to tap through those. I believe they have a number of pictures that come up there.
Okay. So first, I'm back, and thank you so much, Dr. Healey. That was really good. It seemed to do it on its own. I love it. So again, everyone, thank you so much for bearing with us as we work through our first webinar tonight and the glitch of the missing Dr. Healey. So I'm glad he was able to get back on the call, but it was not as we intended to go this way. So thank you so much for bearing with us. And we are going to have just a few minutes for some questions. I see some coming in. While those continue to come in, I did just want to kind of hit a couple more housekeeping points. First, please keep an eye out for a post-webinar email that you're going to receive. There will be a link to tonight's video in it, as well as a survey on how we did. Obviously, we know that we missed the mark on the tech side, but we really would love to hear your thoughts on what went well and more importantly, what could have gone better. Also, for attending tonight's webinar, everyone in attendance this evening now has access to a special coupon code that will give you an extra 20% off savings on any of the remedies that Dr. Healey mentioned tonight through February the 6th. So a couple weeks. And that code it will work both in our store as well as on our website. The promo code is SLEEP0121, as in January of 21. So SLEEP0121. And then one final word about products. Unfortunately, ever since the pandemic hit us, sourcing has been an issue. You've probably noticed lots of out of stocks and back orders and things. We are trying our very best to get things in. Some products have never come back in since March. And then other products go through periods of in stock, out of stock. And we're even seeing that with some of the products that Dr. Healey mentioned tonight. So if you're interested in trying one of these products and it's out of stock, we apologize. We're doing our best to get it in, and we will take your name down in store and make sure that we give you a call when it comes back in. So with that, let's turn it over to some of the questions. Let's see here. You said, Dr. Healey, that caffeine, is found in decaffeinated herbal teas, even sleepy time and chamomile. Is that correct?
So the decaffeinated teas, technically tea refers to just the tea plant. So the Camellia sinensis, so those that create black tea, green tea, white tea. You're not going to find what we typically call all things teas, but the ones that are herbal should not have those types of Camellia sinensis or that tea leaf in it. so they would not have caffeine in them. So generally, I would check the label, but to my knowledge, I do not believe those have any caffeine in them. What we call herbal teas should probably more appropriately be called herbal tisanes, essentially, which is just taking herbs and steeping them in water. So no, I would not expect herbal teas, especially those for sleep, to have any caffeine in them.
Okay, thank you there. Another question, can we furnish a copy of this presentation? An attendee really liked it and wanted to know if we can make a PDF of this, let's say, and forward that out. Is that something that you'd be comfortable doing?
Yes, I believe we can do that. I'll get
Perfect.
that over to you.
What we'll do is we'll try to either put a link in the email that goes out tomorrow, but one way or another, we will get that out to everyone then. Next question is, can you take, actually, we got a couple questions to this effect. If you take melatonin regularly, will your body produce less of it naturally?
So in essence, potentially. What might happen more regularly is when I mentioned that as you take melatonin, your body becomes less responsive to it. That is probably the more likelihood. Essentially, what your body does is it starts what they call down-regulating or getting rid of certain receptors for melatonin. And so even the melatonin that your body produces or the melatonin that you take externally will no longer have the same effect that it used to. And so there does need to be a bit of a so-called washout period or time when you have to kind of stop yourself from taking in externally so that you can make yourself more sensitive to it again. So whether or not your body stops production of melatonin, I've heard it both ways. I've heard no, that actually enhances production, but I definitely have heard that your body stops responding to it in the same way because it's too much of a stimulus. So it then closes off the receptors for the melatonin and you don't respond to it in that way.
And a quick personal follow-up on that. I may have been reading forward in questions, so I apologize if I missed this, but you said the washout period. Did you happen to say how long, is there an average amount of time that somebody can expect if they've been taking melatonin for a while and now they want to discontinue?
I do not have a certain time frame for that washout period. Okay. I won't even have an educated guess on that, but my guess is probably, at least a few weeks.
Okay. And then very much related to that same question, just want to make sure that we hit all the nuance of it. Someone also asked, if you take melatonin, is that considered habit forming or can it be taken just when you need it? I'm hearing you say it's best to take it when you need it, correct?
Correct. Best to take when needed and for those shorter period of time because it can become more that habit forming because of some of the issues that we talked about.
Okay, great. And then we just have two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. Again, thank you, everyone. They both relate to magnesium, Dr. Healey. So the first one is there a blood test for magnesium levels?
Yes, there's actually a couple. The one that you don't want to get is one that just measures serum magnesium. It's because when you're measuring just the serum magnesium or magnesium that's just found in the blood, that's only giving you a small portion and is not giving you actually what is in the cells. So you might have doctors that run blood magnesium or serum magnesium, but it's actually not very accurate. It's not telling you how much magnesium is in the cells. It's just telling you what's in the blood. And the blood levels are kept very tightly controlled by the body, and so you're not going to get an accurate picture. The best one to probably do is what's known as red blood cell magnesium, and that is looking at inside the red blood cells how much magnesium is there. So you're actually measuring how much gets into the cells and what the level is for that. So that would be the best one to look at and or have your doctor run for you is the red blood cell magnesium. Sometimes you might hear it referred to as whole blood cell magnesium. Those are probably the more accurate ones to run. There is some tests for, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Dr. Healey, go ahead.
I was just saying there are some people maybe looking at hair mineral analysis that kind of shows magnesium levels. And as with all tests, nothing is 100%, so you have to take it in the whole grand picture of what else is going on. But probably the red blood cell magnesium or the whole cell one is going to be the best option.
Have you seen if Life Extension, I know they have a lot of blood tests available that you don't need a doctor to order for you. Do you happen to know if they have a magnesium?
Off the top of my head, I do not. I would expect they probably do. And I believe there's also some other direct-to-consumer labs where you don't necessarily have to have a doctor write them for you, but they'd be, out of pocket. I think some of them are they're called direct labs is one of them, or Ultra Labs I think is another one. There's a few of them out there, but yes, I believe Life Extension also has ways of testing your own without getting a doctor's subscription.
Okay, great. And then I will try to find out that information, and we'll get that in the email as well. And then our final question for the night is, what is the best brand of magnesium? What do you recommend?
It's not necessarily the brand of magnesium. The form of magnesium is what's going to be important to consider. And it more has to do with what you're looking to accomplish with that magnesium. In the cases for sleep, probably the better form of it is going to be the magnesium glycinate form. And I say that because the magnesium in that form is bound to what's known as glycine, which is another amino acid. So it's much more readily absorbed by the body, very easy on the gastrointestinal tract, the stomach and digestive system. But glycine in and of itself also has some very calming and relaxing properties to the brain and nervous system. And there are a lot of times you might even see glycine put into sleep products because it inhibits that excitation that the nerve cells have in the brain. So you're getting kind of a 2-for-1. You're getting both the magnesium that's well absorbed and easy on digestion, as well as the glycine portion, which is really needed for the brain and nervous system as well. So that might be the best one to start with.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Dr. Healey. That was really good. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. And again, for working with us as we work through all of our issues. So have a great night. I hope everyone gets very restful sleep tonight. And we will see you soon.